All right. Hello and welcome to another episode of Raw Talks, where we have candid conversations with real fearless women that are willing to talk a lot about and share a lot about their own life experiences, their own hurdles that they have overcome, and victoriously share the learnings that they have got from all of those experiences and inspire us. So we have one incredible woman here today, Rachel Beck. Now, people that do not know her, she is an inspiration for many, not only because of who she is in terms of her following, in terms of her influential presence, but also because what got her there. And I really want to appreciate the heart and soul that you put in, Rachel, towards community building every single day and consistently so. Like, it's gone too far if I have to scroll a couple times to find Rachel. It's never happened. Like, it is always, she's on the top of the field only because of the kind of work and the engagement that you provide. So it's truly, truly an honor to have you here today. And I want to also welcome the topic that we are going to discuss here today. And thank you for all of your willingness to share uh, a very taboo topic of discussing infertility, and to an extent which is like so real in all of the lives of women. Like, we all know some woman or the other that has gone through a situation like this, or has dealt with it, and has had many psychological, social, mental, societal impacts due to the situation that is out of our control. By the way, we don't wish for it, we don't really plan for it, it just happens. So we are at the perusal of what is happening to us instead of what we are creating. So, A, about accepting that, right? And B, about dealing with it in a way where we don't lose a sense of self-worth. And I'm sure that is what we are going to be talking about in the conversation today, and learn from each of our experiences of what we have dealt to get through a place where we are capable mentally, physically, and emotionally to deal with either fertility or infertility, because both of them are challenges in their own way. Having kids is not a joke, and not having them is not a joke either. So all of those, and plus we forget an important element here, which is choice. you know if somebody does not have a kid, does not mean that that person is infertile. It's wrong to categorize them as such. It could be a matter of free will, where you do not want to really get into that, and it's completely okay. We as a society need to embrace that and accept that, because it is at the end of the day a free will of a woman, right? So I think all of those are important things. I know that I do have Rachel, who is going to share her story with us today. So welcome, Rachel, again.
Welcome.
Um, and my friends here, Caren, Linda, and Ash, thank you so much for joining as well. We will all, have and share our own experiences that come to infertility, or our experiences that we've had firsthand or learned it from others, in our society, in our group, so that we could shed some light on the topic. The intent here is to shed some light to inspire others to victoriously come out of it by being the least affected, because this is not a victim game, this is not to be victimized. So we want to come out of it, purely in a way where victoriously, not as a victim. And to also then really share a few tips for people that may be perhaps going through a situation like this, or dealing with this, and maybe wanting to find a voice, so to inspire those people as well. So these are the primary intents of this conversation. We welcome all the listeners. Please feel free to pop in your questions as you may have once we continue to discuss. And if anything comes in that you want us to further elaborate on, or share more for, feel free to reach out. But I would love to hear if my co-host Caren, Ash, and Linda have anything to add before we let Rachel take the stage.
Go ahead.
I love that. Thank you, ladies. And Rachel, it's a pleasure to have you here, my friend. We would love to hear a little bit about how you were doing, first of all, to set the stage straight, and then to get into why did you choose this topic? Because there are multiple things that we have dealt with in life, and as a woman living in a foreign country, there are many aspects to your personality too, which are all intriguing to us, as a listener, as a friend, as a viewer. What we would want to understand to get go is, why did you choose this specific topic to shed light on? Like, is there a reason behind it? And we could get going from there. So welcome.
Well, first of all, thank you all for having me. I appreciate it. And thank you for your very humbling introduction. And I love your book. Your book is amazing. So people need to buy your book. I really, I texted you when I read it. I sat down, read it, and read it over like 2 days. And I love your book. So I wanted to say
Thanks.
that. I honestly, I picked this topic because it's not discussed enough. It is something that people don't have enough courage to come out and talk about. And right now, because we're between, Mother's Day, and I do a yearly post about it, and then Father's Day is coming up this Sunday. And then there's a lot of the infertility community, and I'll be saying something about that on Friday, to acknowledge that infertility affects males and females, and a lot of society forgets that. They think that men are strong and then they go through this, but no, there's a lot of emotions, and that infertility affects an entire family. So with what's going on with pandemic, with people losing mothers, losing fathers, I have a lot of friends, unfortunately, who have lost fathers this year. So I know this coming Sunday is not going to be easy for them. So I picked this topic to say it's okay. Not all of us are going to become mothers, no matter how much we dreamed about it, no matter what we did, put our bodies through for it to happen, and then it didn't. And the other message, honestly, is that all my issues and problems have come from women, not men. Not one male has ever said anything negative to me about not being a mother. It's been all women. So, and like, you're not a woman because you're not a mom. You're not a woman because you had a hysterectomy. I mean, just really cruel things. And even when I've lost 2 children through miscarriage, and only 5 people knew about the second child, I'm sharing it now. Women also said the worst stuff to me after I miscarried. Get over it. Another child's going to replace that child. Get up. Get it. It's over. It's done with. Well, that's not what you're saying. If you don't have anything nice to say after a woman miscarries, don't say anything at all. It's that simple. It's being an empathetic human being. And I give tips about this. I've shared ceremonies on miscarriages through video that people have passed on to me. So this is a community that needs our love. It needs our support. We can never, ever, ever get away from this question. I ask people, I've said it in post, stop asking me if I'm a mom, because I'm sick of that question. I mean, I'm really honestly sick of that question. So they'll say on Mother's Day, Happy Mother's Day. I'm like, not the right person. Caren went out of her way and wrote me the most beautiful message on Mother's Day. Thank you.
Oh,
It was so thoughtful. So it's creating like a consciousness, not assuming every person is a parent. I never ask people, one, if they're married. I don't ask them if they have children. And it's to talk about the grieving parents out there. A lot of parents, Father's Day is horrible. Mother's Day was horrible. So I'm surrounded by it from that time period. Every store you walk in, it's cards and this, and you're a better person because, you're a mother. This year, for the first time, I was buying my mother. I hosted Mother's Day, a card. And it was the first time ever I saw a card that said, I know you're hurting today. I know you're not a mom, and I just wanted you to know I'm thinking about you. And I'm sensitive to the fact that this day is difficult. I couldn't believe it. It was the first time I saw that.
wow, that is really strong, because I think when we see these kinds of cards out there, when we're talking about it being available at certain places, that just means that people are now finally being sensitive towards the population that deals with these kinds of situations. They are acknowledging the situation, number one, which is why they're doing something about it. and B, I think voices like your and mine are being heard. Like, now people are listening, that there is that kind of a sector out there that is grieving today. It's not just about celebrating. There are certain things that people deal with. So I'm so glad. Thank you for sharing that. It's been a while since I've gone to the stores and checked out the cards that are available, but it gives me a lot of joy to hear that there is something like that available, because it is a big deal. And just to take a couple steps back, Rachel, I think when we are growing up as a woman, right, right from that tender age, it is somehow embedded into our subconscious by our surroundings, by people around, that one fine day we would be, we could be, we should be a mother. Like, it is just embedded subconsciously, in that way, just by the fact of us being a woman that has a capability of caring, potential of carrying a baby, and bringing a baby into this world. Now, having that potential versus wanting it is two different things, which we don't realize it until we are a certain age, and until we have certain life experiences, right? So and then, to your point, if we decide to also say, for example, want to have a kid, now having the ability to then have a kid is a different story in itself again, right? So wanting it and then being able to have it is another story. And then we go through things like miscarriages and stuff like that. It has got a lot to do with our physical, mental, and psychological space to begin with, and it has a lot of impact on all of this even after, right? So to be able to get into this, thinking that I will be able to bear a child, right, physically I'm capable of, mentally I'm capable of, is all the checks that many times women miss to do, because it is, they may not be they may be wanting it so much that they may not be really focusing on their physical health of being able to actually carry, all those things. And plus, after the fact, after all of this has happened, now you need that tender, loving care, and not the taunts and the things of people around you saying, oh, let it go, and insensitive comments. No baby is going to be replaceable. Like, I have gone through 3 miscarriages myself, and I know that out of 5 pregnancies I have 2 kids. So the 3 miscarriages that I've had, they are irreplaceable. It does not really mean that the 2 kids have filled those gaps. No, those have left a dent in my subconscious, right? Because those were losses, right? So to be able to go through something like that for a woman and to not have a supporting network around is very difficult. And that includes the family as well. That includes our closest friends as well. Supposedly closest friends, right? So would any of you guys, I know Ash, you have dealt with something similar. I know Caren, Linda, any of you guys want to share some of the situations that you guys have also dealt with to kind of
Okay.
add to the conversation?
But I also wanted to point out with Rachel, one of the things also is education. I think is also very much what you were talking about. I think educate. I love the fact that that car was out, but I also think people need to be educated because you have no idea what's going on. You don't know, like to Falguni's point earlier. Maybe people don't want children, or maybe like a friend of mine is one and done. She doesn't want any more children. She had the one, and and so it's all of that. It's when you're getting married, and you know what I mean. It starts like early on, right? It's when you're getting married. You're dating somebody for a while. It's when you're getting married, and then it's okay once you get married when you're having kids, and then when you're having it. You know what I mean? And
When you're having grandkids.
I mean, it's like it doesn't end. It literally doesn't end. And so I know for me, I had actually both times. I have 2 kids, and both times I tried to get pregnant. It was difficult, but my daughter ended up being. I ended up having to. I don't even remember the name of it. It was a histio somethingogram where they inject dye into you, and
Yes.
I can't remember the name of it. But nonetheless, I had that done, and that came back fine. And then, okay, they were like, okay, we're going to do exploratory surgery to see what's going on. And when I went for the blood test before the surgery, I was told I was pregnant. So my daughter ended up being natural pregnancy, natural childbirth. And then I was like joking, I'll be the first one. We're going to have a kid right away. I don't want to try again. So like 2 years later, we started trying zero, like nothing was happening. And long story short, we started at Clomid and we went up to my son is actually my second in vitro attempt. And that 2 and a half year period was full, and mind you, I had a child, and so I got it was, first of all, you're full of emotions because you're going through this hormones, there's all these insane things being injected into your body. That's the first thing. The second thing is almost like it's and Mitchell, when I'm done, you can totally speak to the mourning of a loss. It's almost like you're literally mourning a loss of something. Like that's how I felt. For me, in my case, I was yearning for a second child, but I was getting, why you have a child? She's beautiful. Why would you want another one? So I was getting those kind of comments, and the people who didn't believe in the avenues I was taking in which to get another child, to obtain another child, because it wasn't a natural thing I was doing, if you will. It was insane the amount of comments that I had. And then I was getting, when are you having another child? And somebody, I can't take credit for this, I don't remember who told me this, but my response whenever somebody would say, when are you having another child, would be, we're having fun trying. And that literally off put everybody, because it's like, well, what do you say? It's like, what do you say? But it was just like, they didn't know, not everybody knew what was going on. And so while outwardly I seemed normal, and I was very blessed with the normal, she was 4.5 when my son was born, but still, you don't know what somebody's going through. And the comments and everything, because the outward appearance is so much different than the inward appearance. And so also there was no support or anything, but my friend had given me a book called The Couple's Guide to Infertility. And that really helped. So one of the pieces of advice I would say is get books. So even if you don't have people support, there are in fact books out there. I mean, granted, my son is now 15, but my son was actually my second in vitro. My first actually didn't work. And I was blessed with the fact that I only had one and not 90. But at the same time, it was a long, hard, and he ended up being, I joke he was implanted head first because he was literally up here the whole time I had a C-section. But it was a really long, hard journey, and I still talk about, because I think, Rachel, to your point, it is extremely important to talk about it, and I honestly do feel like it's actually becoming more prevalent lately, than not, even before the pandemic hit and everything like that. But it is just amazing to me how people are so cruel and so get over it and whatnot, and you really can't do that. So how did you mourn the loss? Do you even, like, I know you talk about it, I know it's like a platform for you, but do you even try to explain yourself anymore? Or is it just like, I kind of felt like these people are just whatever, and even though it was like bothersome, it was not worth my effort. So I feel like almost in your case, Rachel, you're kind of using that platform for good, and almost shutting them up, but in a good way, rather than, in the Brooklyn way that I would do. Just saying.
I love that because my parents are New Yorkers. So, well, it's a couple things, because what happens is so that I say I don't have biological children. The next step is, Rach, you need to adopt, right? And I have to say this: I'm really blessed because I have my best friends around me and have a very strong. I have a very strong family support system. Next comment that comes out of them is, "Why aren't you adopting?" Right? And I go, well, that's a really long story. And they're like, well, what's the story? I'm like, here's a short part of it. I did try adoption, got on a plane, fell in love with the baby, met her, and lost her all in 24 hours. And so I'm not going to explain the whole story to you, because there's a lot of legal issues. But we had one of the worst case scenarios. It could have been a movie, like a really bad movie, following us for 24 hours. So that's the other thing that comes up. Why aren't you adopting? Well, did you not think me as being an adoptee? And like, that's originally what I wanted to do, was to adopt, to do that. I was like, I was lucky. I was blessed. I was adopted from India, when I was 11 months old. Maybe this is the universe telling me to do that. So in that, it was like, so I had the miscarriage, failed adoption, then the other miscarriage. And I wasn't even supposed to get pregnant. It was like a fluke. I was told I was never, ever going to get pregnant again. I had done things for that not to prevent it, because of all the emotional roller coaster. So these are questions again. Well, just try this. And it's insulting to people, because it's like, you don't think that we tried everything? Like that is something that we just gave up. Like you, I did treatments. I didn't do IVF. I did another one, and it's like you're saying. It's like hopes high, and then all the way. It's like it's like the sky falls and you hit the ground so fast. That's what you wake up pregnant and you go to bed not pregnant. How do you explain that to people? You know, how do you even put that into words? It's like, oh, great, and then like with the failed adoption, I was coming home to we had a baby shower, a full nursery in my house. So my husband had ran upstairs, shut the door. Was working with a therapist, and she's like, Rach, don't go in there for like a good month. So I didn't. Then finally we opened the door. I donated everything to the YWCA, to the women's shelter, and then gave all the furniture to our friends who were adopting at the time. So these are the things people don't know about. This is what they don't realize, the amount of emotion. So, and still to this day, people ask me this question, and I just say, oh, I really don't talk about that today. I just don't. And that's what I'm trying to use my platform for is, are you sensitive? Do you really need to ask people this question? Why is it necessary to ask people, do you have children? If they volunteer it, that's great and wonderful. And like 99.9% of people in my life have children. And I celebrate them, the whole thing, what their kids are doing. I ask about them. And that's the other side of it. I had 3 women on my show once. One didn't want to have children by choice. One had children, but she had battled on and off. And we talked about that. And she's like, why is it that married people never ask single people about their life? She's like, I go to these dinners, I sit down, and they're talking about their kids the entire conversation of the dinner. And I'm sitting there like, but not one person at that dining room table will turn around and ask me. I thought it was really profound.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is amazing. Rachel, first of all, thank you and welcome to be on the show. This topic is absolutely just amazing. Honestly, it has to be up there. And we don't get lots of people talking about it. So I think it's about time that we, try to be more cognizant of this. One of the things is that I personally also have been through a miscarriage situation, right?
So,
And what I realized was procreation that is on women, right? It doesn't seem like a personal choice. It's more like a societal. The society feels they have a say in what you're doing in your life. Like after you grow up, what's the next step? If you have a child, is it a girl or a boy? Then it's the next thing. Is it two? Then it just rolls on. And the more you let people come in and say something, they feel that there's more. They'll just keep saying more and more things. They'll have more expectations of things for you to do. It seems like your life is not just your own. It's like a stage for people to just come and go. But it's your own choice. It's your thing, that what you want to do, right? Maybe you cannot have kids. Maybe you can have kids and you don't want to have kids. Whatever the choice may be, respect that. So I totally understand what you're saying. One of the things I wanted to ask was, as a woman, um, I know that physically and mentally we go through a lot when these things go on. But what kind of avenues did you find that helped you um, deal with it after the fact when something like this happened? What did you feel was the one thing that most people should or they could apply, in their lives that would help them?
ask for help.
Okay.
Ask for help. I came back from the adoption. I was destroyed. I had pulled myself up from the miscarriage and said, this is not, got the call. I was like, oh, this is never going to happen again. It's going to be great, wonderful. There's no way that this adoption could fail. And it did. So I went to get help. And that was really crucial. And some people think going to therapy is a form of weakness. It is not. We all need somebody to help us get us through our darkest times, whether it's our friends, our family. There is nothing wrong with that. And that is actually when I got diagnosed with PTSD, because they had explained to me that it was too many emotions in a 24-hour period for one human being to experience, to go from like excitement to crash. And when I say this was 24, this all happened in 24 hours, like, and then crash. So it's telling people that it's okay to go out and ask for help, that it's really, really crucial, that it does not make you weak. It takes strength to ask for help. It takes strength to say, you know what, I'm not having a good day. And in a way, like, I love Caren for that. She's like, Rach, I know it's not a good day for you. So here's somebody thinking about you today. And that made all the difference in the world. You know, I tell people on Mother's Day and Father's Day, are you checking in? Are there people in your life right now that could possibly be hurting today? So it's doing that. There's things that you can do. You can, we planted a tree in our backyard in our older house. It was one of our family members' idea. You can do a ceremony. So one of my therapists had said, go down to a body, a river. Can't be the ocean because the water comes back. She's like, put some rose petals in there, have a ceremony, and watch them go down the river. And I did that with some family members, and it was really powerful because we know when someone passes away, there's a funeral, there's, you know, in Judaism we sit Shiva, there's a whole, but with a miscarriage, there's no ceremony. So I've been speaking to people in the religious communities, and there are groups getting ready because they need to address it. Like, I've talked to rabbis about it. They're seeing it more in their congregations. So, like, we need to address this. This has become, their children are going through it. So it's important. Ask for help. We all need help. And it's okay to say, you know, I don't talk about this. Now when people ask me, I look at them and I go, I had a hysterectomy, 2017. It's not even possible. And then they go, it stops them. What else more can they ask me? It's like, I had a hysterectomy. And then they go, oh. And it's just being honest, asking for help, doing the things that therapists recommend. I walk every day. I always have since about 2006. So I take 1 to 2 hours a day for myself where I'm gone. I'm outside. I journal every single day. I write a lot. That helps me with my emotions. I'm unapologetic at this point in my life. I'm 45, and I've been through so much. I've almost died 3 times in my life. So I've been there, done it, seen it, experienced it. That's why I have such okay. You know, when everyone's going through a crisis, I'm like, it's okay. You're going to get through this. I've been through so many crises. I've survived 2 attempted rapes. I mean, I've been through all of it. I've been through all of it. So I know how to go, okay, get up, go, keep going. And luckily I was rescued. You know, with the 2 situations, there was, you know, strangers, not males in my life, but had ran, got help, and was saved by, you know, my neighbors and a family member had saved me from another one. So take a deep breath. And that's why I tell my network, get up, get moving, keep going. You can do it. It's exhausting. And I'm not going to lie about it. We all have days where we're like, can't freaking do this again. This is exhausting. But you pull deep inside, you pull that shit out, excuse my language, and you keep going. You just do. You know, it's not a choice. You just do it. Because in the very, very end, and I know this from almost the 3 times I've almost died, I made peace. It was about the bottom of the ocean. I almost drowned, and then someone saved me. I had fallen off rocks. I'm a very strong swimmer, but I fell off. The ocean was horrible, and someone ended up rescuing me. But I was at the bottom in a cave, holding on for dear life. And I was like, you know what? I'm at peace. I did everything I'm supposed to. And then something was like, Rachel, please kick one more time. And then someone rescued me. But I was tired. I was like, I'm done. I'm good. I'm at peace. So it's all these things. It's like, and now I'm making that conscious choice just to help other people get through the situations that we've all been through, where life has been tough for us. It's been horrible. It's shitted all over us. And now what do we do with that? Do we lock all that knowledge up and that wisdom, or do we teach it to the rest of the people to get through? It's our responsibility to teach it to other people, to say, life has not been easy for me. It's not been rainbows and unicorns. So I'm going to share this with you in order to help you.
Rachel, I love everything that you've said
Hi.
about how to come to peace with the situation, and you said what to do in the loss situation with the ceremonies. I think that's absolutely beautiful and helps part of the healing. What do you say to someone that has also gone through the other side of the adoption that has fallen apart? I know of individuals that they try to keep going, it gets tired, they say enough is enough, but then they think, oh, let's try again. At some point, it may be for that person's journey to have peace with it. What would you say to somebody that could help, so that way we're not being that person coming in saying the wrong thing? Because I would sure love to know what that is, because I hear of families going through this all the time, and so I err probably on saying nothing instead of saying something, because I don't want to be that person to put injury into what's going on, but I want to be supportive.
And that's a really good question. I mean, that's a really good question, Linda. One of the things you can do, and I just was like talking about this, if you know somebody who's been through this, right? I tell people, leave care packages on the front porch. You don't even need to see them, and I explain that for me, like a warm blanket, like a cozy teddy bear, a package of like tea, really warm socks, stuff that is nurturing to them. You can put on the front step. So even you can deliver food. Food was the last thing on my mind. So we did have, friends who'd be like, okay, like we got food. Like, what do you need? I'm a huge foodie. I'm a woman who loves to eat, period. The end. So I'm like, do you want a pizza? I tell people, send over a pizza. Send over Chinese food tonight. So those are things, if you don't want to be intrusive, and some people don't, because they might not necessarily know what to say. And you said the exact thing. Don't say something if you're going to say the wrong thing. Just don't do it. Because in all honesty, you will remember that person's words. I had somebody say to me, it was the day after I came home from that experience. I was on the freaking couch, couldn't move, and everything in my instinct, except for family, told me not to pick up that phone that day. Picked up the phone, and I could barely function from all the trauma. And someone had said to me, well, I think the tears are done, and I'm not going to listen to you cry. Who says that? Like, what human being says that? So if you want to help somebody, you listen to them. Take the time. Don't shut them down, and don't dismiss them. Even if you don't say anything, if you're on the other end of the phone, I've had to do it for people. I've showed up in a hospital where friends called and said, "Oh my gosh, she's about to miscarry. Rachel, get down here immediately." And I've done it. I've showed up for friends who've been through all these, situations. If you can't say anything, send a basket, send something, and understand that, because people did that to me. Linda was like, oh, well, if that didn't work, then adopt again. And my response to them is, do you have any idea what that was like? What makes you think I want to do that all over again? Now, saying that, not every adoption situation, we had a 0.001% chance of what happened to us. Not every adoption ends the way. There's a lot, we all know, very happy, very, very happy adoptions. But it's so relevant that there's failed adoptions, that there's actually, with the IRS, there's a tax credit if you have failed adoption, right? Because like, that was a big thing too. There's a ton of cost and everything associated with adoptions. So if someone calls and you know what to say, don't say anything. Just say, you know what? I'm going to listen.
I love that. I love that so much, because it's like, if you don't have anything nice, don't say anything at all. But it's still showing a way of showing that you're caring, and that you want them to know that you're there for them. You just don't know, and in some capacity, you just don't know. I love that. That was a phenomenal question, Linda. I actually have two things that I wanted to address. Number one, talking about adoption and everything like that. I don't know if you guys follow Dave and Rachel Hollis. Dave Hollis is more prevalent on social media now. Rachel Hollis she said some weird things that people didn't like. But I don't know if this helps you, Rachel, but like, just in terms of, they had a few failed adoptions, and they ended up adopting. They had actually 3 children, and long story short, they had 3 biological children. They wanted a 4th child, and they ended up like I think a few failed adoptions, and they fostered, like it was like a mess. They actually are very public about this, and they have a little girl now. But I don't know. As you were talking, I was thinking about him. I was like, oh my god, I would love to, like, I don't even know him, but I think he would be such a great resource, in terms of, because even people on Instagram ask him when they do ask me anything, about adoption, things like that. He's very open about it, and so it's really refreshing to hear what they have to say in such an honest manner. It's like amazing. And the other thing I want to address, because you're talking about you and how you've gotten through it and how all these things happen to you, but you have a spouse,
Mhm.
right? So like, and I know, like, when we were going through, I couldn't, like, when we were doing our journey, I did IUI. I mean, I couldn't inject myself with all the hormones. Like, I couldn't do it. My husband had to give me shots all the time. And the way we actually would do it, we would use humor. Like, I was a bullseye or like whatever. I mean, because we had to, because like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it was because it's insane. I mean, because it's like every night he had to give me a shot, my tush. I mean,
Right, right.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it could be challenging, not just for the woman, but for the spousal partner. So can you speak to that? Like, how did you guys, I mean, you don't have to be like personal on how you dealt with it or whatever, but like, do you, when you speak your platform, isn't it also about what they're going through and how they're dealing with it, and then how it affects your then relationship?
Yeah, we stood by each other. That was the only way to do it. I mean, we just stood by each other. He's an extremely strong individual emotionally and like everything else. And so when it had fallen apart with adoption, right? I had been up 24 hours. I fell. I literally physically fell, and I was laying on our hotel room floor. And we just gotten 1,000 phone calls about everything. And he physically lifted me up, and he put me in the bed. And he said the agency called again, and they wanted us to try XYZ. And he's like, you know what, you're done. My wife can't handle anything. You don't even know, look in her eyes. Like, you're done talking to her. Like, you're just done. And so it was a support system. When we had the first miscarriage, you walk into the ER, they have a whole intake and then an outtake, right? So we had gotten the ultrasound, all that stuff, and we're walking out of the hospital. And I'll leave their name out for legal reasons. And this person turns to us and was like, "Congratulations on the baby. We're so happy for you." And my husband turned around and goes, "Do you read the charts? Like, do you know what goes on in the ER when a patient walks in, then walks out?" And he just looked at us like, "It'd be a good thing if you read your charts before you talk to people on the way out." So yeah, we've stood by each other. Um, how can you not? And that's why, like, come this Father's Day, when I do my video Friday, I'm gonna address that, because I know from my personal experience, like, some of my girlfriends, husbands who I ran, to be with a couple. I'm talking about big, tough guys who I've seen cry the night of the miscarriage or the next day. And I run over and I give them ornaments for their trees, because that's what people do. That's something else they can do. And so I have a couple, even though I'm Jewish, my husband's not. And so we have a Christmas tree. And so we have different angels that go up on the tree. So yeah, it definitely, it affects the entire family, Caren. I'm glad you brought that up. Imagine calling your mother 3 times, and my father. I'm extremely close to my parents. It was painful the first time. It was painful because they're all excited. They're like with us emotionally. They're about to jump up into the state we were to meet, to meet their granddaughter, and then to call again and go, sorry, and then to call them again and go, we just lost another grandchild. So it affects uncles. I have brothers in my family. It affects all of them. It is a family. It affects the entire family.
Yeah, and it's funny, as you were speaking, I remembered what happened to my neighbor. And thank you for sharing that, and I'm so thrilled that you're speaking to that too. My I live in a townhouse. I'm attached on both ends, and we're very very close to my neighbor, and her son. They were pregnant. The daughter-in-law was pregnant, and we had a baby shower and everything. They knew they were having a boy, and all of a sudden, 2 o'clock in the morning, we get a phone call that he's dead. the baby was born stillborn. And it was like it was just that's another piece of it too. I mean, it's there's infertility about not having a child, and there's also the, the miscarriage, or you have, you know what I mean. And what do you do with that, and whatnot. And it was and I never experienced anything like that in my lifetime. This was literally like 4 years ago, 5 years ago. And I would buy them pizza, and I would just be like, "You okay?" I'm like, "If you need anything, let me know." You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, I didn't know what else to do. And they actually got tattoos. So you were saying about ornaments, but that's what made me think of it. He actually had the feet, and this just happened to another neighbor of mine, where she ended up having him. He was, I think, 4 months old, and also born like 6 months early. They got the feet, and actually this guy got a clock of the time of death. So like different sort of ornaments is great, and I think it's a personal choice of how to honor the law. I hate to say lost child, but like for lack of a better way is to say it's a lost child. I love the ornament thing though; it's a great idea.
No, someone had given me the idea, and that they had been through it. It's something that they do in their family that they pass on to their friends, and so it's something that, like, so if someone calls us, I can send it. I can, no matter what, someone still enjoys like an angel. It doesn't matter what religion you're. An angel is for everybody, right? That watches over us. It has that we all have angels in our lives, so that's something that you can do. And reaching out during the holidays, because for some people that's really really difficult, and they're thinking about, like, oh, my kid could be opening up a gift today, or they could be lighting the menorah today with me. So the holidays for some people suck. I mean, let's be honest, we all know holidays can be really hard for people to begin with, but that's something to acknowledge too, and to say, how's your Christmas, how's your Hanukkah, how's your Kwanzaa, how are these holidays for you. I love that you talked about that you did pizza and that you did food. It's something. You can do something. The worst thing you can do is not say anything at all. I had that experience with two women in my life where they didn't know what to say, so they just stopped talking to me completely. And then I bumped into one like 3 years later, like just randomly on a trail, and she's like, "Hey, how are you?" I'm like, "I'm fine." And she's like, "I didn't know what to say to you, so I just stopped saying anything." And I was like, "Well, and my comment to her was, you find out who your real friends are during the hard times. It's not the easy times, it's the hard times." And I just kind of looked at her, because it wasn't a matter that I had, because I'm a diehard friend. You guys know that I will be there with you to the very, very end. But man, to walk away from somebody during the hardest time in their lives, it's not okay.
I feel that's such a beautiful thing that you just said, Rachel, because what happens is people don't know how to respond to a situation, even though it is not there, it is ours, for example, right? They
Yes.
don't know what to say. Now, as we discussed earlier in the conversation, that it's okay to not say anything than to say anything wrong. Agreed. But it is not okay to ghost somebody or just literally
Yes.
escape, because this is your opportunity as a friend, as a family member, or as a support group, whoever you are, to show that you are there, not by words but by action. Sometimes by words, sometimes by certain gestures, sometimes by just sending a note thinking of you, or I love you, or something like that, which has got nothing to do with the situation at all. If I'm unable to say something or console you in any specific manner, all I need to say is I'm there for you, period. Literally,
That's it. It's a text.
that's a text. It's a text.
Or it's a matter of just saying, I don't know what to say. I'm just letting
Correct.
you know, like, if
Correct.
you need me, I'm here. I don't know what to say.
That's it. And
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, exactly. Like, I am here is good enough. It takes care of everything. Like, I understood exactly everything that you're wanting to show in terms of support, right? One other thing that I want to add to this really beautiful conversation here is to also have the gift of perspective, because what happens is, we are so, as an individual, as a woman, we go through all of these different experiences, right? And they are not pleasant. We hear firsthand everybody around us talking us mean things, like how, Rachel, you shared a few. We all have. Karen, I'm sure you have heard of some. Ash, me, I remember those comments. To your point, those are not forgotten. You remember, and you hear it in those people's voices, because they are real, like, they have been told to you. So I remember those comments, I remember those people. big part of healing is to grow above them, in the sense that not to hold them responsible to really grow. That's one thing, that's personal growth, right? The other thing is that we ourselves end up believing our self-worth gets affected a whole lot by this situation, right? What happens is, now because I lost a baby with whatever reason, I am now feeling less off, myself, like, oh, I am not able to conceive, I'm not able to have a baby, whatever it is. There is a direct connection with the self-worth, right? So what happens is, looking at things from a perspective, this is now my example, as I mentioned, my first three were losses to then have two successes, right? So initially, to be able to see the three go was hard as hell, right? And to your point, Rachel, to call your parents who are actually genuinely caring for you and tell them all the way, they're far, they're in another country altogether, to tell them, hey, come, and hey, no, no, don't come. Like, it's not a joke. You're playing with their emotions, you're doing a lot of things, plus you're dealing with your own stuff, plus you're dealing with the interpersonal situation with your spouse, because now you are also feeling like, oh my gosh, like, as a woman, like, oh, I could not bear it, oh my god, I could not take it all the way through, whatever it is that we are going through. There is that element as well. So allowing ourselves the space to actually, grieve, to really be okay with the situation, get back into our body, if you mean, right? That is important. Now, for me, when I was going through these things, I was thinking, this is it. I mean, nobody in this world could have had it any worse than I have. Like, oh my god, like, again and again and again, like, oh my god, right? So then you feel, because you've heard of some, by the time you lose the first one, you've heard of somebody else that have also gone through this. Okay, there is hope. And then second time, again, like, oh my god, really? And then the third. So you go through that. So I was dealing with those things, to then realize, right? And then I have a success story. Two of my kids are there. So basically, that's again my story. Nothing wrong or good with anybody else's, by the way. So let's just be clear, right? And then the second thing was that then I have this really close friend at work. She had the same situation, baby shower, everything done, 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 done. The second kid, literally, she went over the time, like, over the due date. She went over, everything was cool. She went for an induction, like, she wanted to get induced that day, because she was way over, and a stillborn. Like, what? And I felt that day, like, my gosh, my problem was nothing. Like, come on, like, this is even worse, right? Okay. Then after that, a few years later, I lost my cousin, 23-year-old. Okay. Now, for that, my aunt, who's the mother of the kid, like, I literally see her every single day, just literally breathing. She's not living. She's just not living. Okay. Because it is too much to deal with a young death like that. So what I'm trying to say here is that this is all a matter of perspective. People are grieving different things in life. And so it would have been perhaps okay to not have a baby at all, and be okay with the fact that, oh, I just can't, then to deal with three miscarriages, or then to deal with a stillbirth, or to then deal with a young death. Like, what is better? None of this is better.
No.
So to be able to really go through all of this with the sense of acceptance of whatever we are going through, with the sense of empathy towards whatever others are going through, and be non-judgmental. Like, who are we to judge? I mean, who gave us that right? Like, how dare we? Because we are here to just live our life. Nobody in has the power. How much ever I wish, I cannot do good or bad to you, Rachel, in the sense of this situation, right? Or Linda, Ash. We can't. We just are unable to. All we could do is wish well for one another. Can we at least do that? Like, you know what I mean?
Women can definitely do that. We can
Right.
absolutely do that.
But it's also, Rachel, what you're doing with everything that's been going on. Like, somebody had to go first, right? Like, it's always somebody had to go first. So, you know, you're using this. You're using all the shit that you've been through to help someone else. I mean, that's a servant heart if I ever had one. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
it's because it's all about the fact that you're right. It's not talked about enough. It's, it's societal influences and everything like that, and you're providing, you have, like, in my head I'm picturing, like, even if people aren't commenting or sending you messages, I know the message is getting out there for people, and it's, and I feel like now more than ever your message is so needed to be received, especially in the culture we're living in at the moment.
And the pandemic.
You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And then, everybody has something to say about something. You know what I'm saying? In general, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, right, and in the pandemic, because our mental health is hugely affected by this, the pandemic, add on all the other shit that
Right?
would happen and everything like that, because it is not. And Falguni, I love that, and I hate to say it this way, but like you brought up the self-worth point,
Mhm.
because it is so true. Because if you're under the free will that you want a child, so you, people can choose not to have child, and that's awesome, and that's wonderful, and that's a great, their choice. But if you're like someone like myself, when you do want a child, and you're not getting that, and then somebody else is pregnant, and this, in my case, when I was trying for my son, my neighbor who was 17 at the time got pregnant and had a kid, and I was like, "Are you effing kidding me?"
Mhm.
Like, there was a lot of me then, and I was not as personally developed and involved then than I am now, but to be perfectly transparent. But I was like, she's 17 and I'm 36 and I can't have a kid. You know what I'm saying? And I understand how that sounds, but like, I feel like that's normal also in a way. Because it is, I feel like, do you agree, Rachel? Like, it's normal to be like, yes, you're happy for them, but at the same time, you're mourning something that you don't have. So
No,
while it's also that dichotomy of emotions where you don't have something and somebody else does,
Yeah,
and
it triggers something.
you know what I
but
mean?
Yeah.
people tend to, like, I had a lot of this, Karen, where they were getting pregnant and they weren't telling me because
Oh
they,
yeah.
Mhm.
but they didn't. They were like, and I would call, and then one of my friends, oh my god, did you hear so and so is pregnant? And like I call people like, congratulations, let's do this and get a baby. So that's something too. Like we do celebrate other people's pregnancies. We celebrate, people's families. And if again, you said something really important, grief. Okay, like get help with therapy, whatever you need to do. But the most important thing is grief is our own personal process.
Mm.
However long it takes us, because for me, grief is like this wave. So I'm great, 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 great. Something happens. I had a trigger or something. Great, great, great. Something happens. To not tell people that they should be over their grief. It's not okay. It is such a deeply personal. We might have an anniversary date. We might have something that we remember. Something comes up. So that's another message. Stop telling people when to get over their grief. The
Right.
wave. It's a wave for many, many people.
Right.
Sunday is going to be really hard for people. Father's Day is going to be difficult.
And let me tell you
Mhm.
something about that. I know we're doing it at an hour, but one of the I my dad's got 10 years. And even though I have children, even though my husband has, and even though my husband is a father, Father's Day sucks in a way. But my point is about the grief is that I always say this about losing a parent. Like, you never get over it, you just kind of learn to live with it. And I think that's the case too. And I think most of you kind of, sometimes you can smile at things, like it might, you remember some things and whatnot, but grief never goes away.
No.
It's just
No.
something that's always there, and you never know what can trigger the emotion.
Be
Yeah.
kind. At the end of the day, be kind
Yes.
because you do not know what the next
Yeah.
person's going through. Just do not say things if you don't understand their situation. Like you guys said, yeah, don't use sympathy, use empathy, is what I feel. So, yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
really very well said, Ash, because it is so important because people really need that empathetic understanding of, I understand what you're going through, rather than, oh, sorry that you're going through that. Like, there is a difference in that, the tone, and it's different in the way we approach the situation and the way we show support, really, right? So I think it is important to have that, and to also then also understand that some of the things that we have gone through in terms of experiences, like I remember not being called for baby showers. I remember being intentionally, like said, oh, don't say in front of her. Like, we remember those kinds of situations, right? Because, of all the situations that were happening. But I think important is to really be able for us, for our growth, to be able to deal with it in whatever way speaks to us, whatever time it takes for us. It's really okay for us to grieve, our situation, no matter how small or how unimportant other person categorizes it to be. That's their problem. Ours is real, whatever it is. For it's real for us, and to be able to acknowledge that, to accept that, and to then deal with it in the time that we need, in the way we need, is a free will that we can exercise, and we can give each other the space to do that, right? And then also, learning to hold space for others that may be going through worse or better than us, doesn't matter, right? To able to hold space for others, and then to also raise voice, which is why I love the work you are doing, Rachel, is because, I mean, it is just, we are five of us were on the call a little earlier, right? How each of us have had a similar experience, or have known somebody firsthand that has had an experience like this. That just goes to say that we are all in this together, that we are all impacted by this equally as much, right? So now let's just say that this is an important matter. This is actually a problem that is supposed to be spoken about, dealt with, and accepted, right? I think the probability of all of us going through something and having those kinds of experiences speaks volumes of the prevalence of this situation, and it is going to continue because of the societal factors, because of the food that we eat, the environment that we are living in. There are many contributors to the situation. It is not a magical pill situation, right? To have a baby is a big process, and to be able to really go through all of that in the way is going to be just, it could be perhaps very challenging given the external environment and situations, especially the stress that we carry these days, right? I mean, the whole stress itself is a big factor again to go through all of that. So if we look at the numbers, I'm sure the metrics also indicate an uptick of these situations, and there could be several factors bringing us to that situation. So I think, what we could collectively as a forum here do is share our experiences and say that it is okay, say that it is really, like, it is okay to hold space, it is okay to be accepted and acknowledge the problems, and that we are not here to judge, and that,
Be sensitive and support each other.
be sensitive.
Not be insensitive. Do no insensitive remarks. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So I have personally absolutely loved this conversation. I thought that this
Thank
is
you
like
for having me.
a
Thank you.
message that needs to be amplified enough, and your voice is really going to help, Rachel. I deeply thank you for joining us here. I'm
Oh, it's
sure,
my honor. I love you guys.
And
I'm
I love
sure,
this conversation.
Thank you.
Even though it's a hard topic, I
And
like. I
anytime,
love
I'll hang with you girls anytime.
yeah,
We can talk about everything and anything.
yes. And also, on behalf of Linda, I would like to thank you, Rachel, because I'm sure she would have enjoyed the conversation exactly as much as we have done. And I hope that it is beneficial for all the listeners that have been able to join us. And if they have any questions, we'll definitely have your information, Rachel, shared. If anybody wants to reach out, talk to you about anything personally, or any of us for that matter, we are all available. We are all real people wanting to solve real problems in whatever small big way we can. Truly, that's our purpose here. So thank you so much, everybody listening, for your time. Thank you so much, everybody on the call, for being so vulnerable, for being so open, and for having this heart to heart conversation. So thank you very much, and we'll see you soon again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you.